Bill, look at that ceiling.
Yeah, we're down.
That-
Screen down.
Ah,
Right.
there we go, very good.
How's that?
Okay,
You can see a few of them.
I can see all of you sitting there, that's just great. I appreciate the chance of doing this. I must say that I have to thank Bob Freeborn a lot, because he and I have really struggled to get this Skype thing working. I had a lovely conversation with a man in India who was trying to help me for an hour and a half, and he couldn't. But Bob and I got it figured out, and that's just great. Here we are. Now, you may know who I am. I'm Dr. Ed Weber, medical oncologist. I worked at Swedish Hospital Cancer Center for 33 years doing general oncology, but in the last 10 years I specialized in prostate cancer. It was kind of the person who the surgeons and the radiation therapists sent patients to help figure out what to do. So after that, when I retired, I continued to have a strong interest in prostate cancer. And I don't know whether any of you folks have access to this, but you certainly can. Every month, I write a commentary, which is called the Prostate Cancer Commentary. And it reviews things that I think are interesting, new, important, sent out all over the world. And it goes to about 400 persons via email, and I'd be happy to put you on the list. And I would say probably tomorrow, the 109th issue is going to be published. So when I talk to support groups, and I do that very frequently, the format that I like most is to be asked questions in general, or perhaps in particular about a man's particular problem, and then I contribute what I can to the analysis of that, trying to expand the issue so everybody kind of learns something from that. So if people have general questions, particular questions, I'd be happy to answer it. If you have no questions, I'll just talk. So I'm open for anything.
You want a question then, Ed? The needle fracking, taking a biopsy and needle fracking, could you comment on that for a moment?
Is the word tracking?
Fracking, needle fracking, biopsy.
Essentially, the risks that biopsies induce.
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to by needle tracking.
Biopsy and the consequences of puncturing the prostate.
I see. Okay. There are always a lot of questions about that. There are a small number of infectious complications, and even a few people have to go to the hospital for infections. But in general, it's a procedure that does not carry a major infectious complication. As anyone who's had it, and I've had brachytherapy myself about 8 years ago. Anybody who has a biopsy, particularly a biopsy that might have 12 or 24 cores, you're going to have some bleeding, and you might even have some difficulty urinating for a while because the prostate gets swollen, and it takes a while for that to resolve. It's an interesting question because there are two ways of doing a biopsy. For years and years and years, urologists have done what's called a transrectal ultrasound-guided biopsy. And that, of course, goes to the rectum. And that is the source of infection, if it should occur. Now, many times, a person has a biopsy and it is reported as negative. But there still may be a significant concern about prostate cancer because perhaps the PSA is too high, perhaps the gland feels unusual, and so people in that situation where there continues to be a high suspicion will have a repeat biopsy. And nowadays, the repeat biopsy is usually combined with what we call a multi-parametric MRI, which allows the urologist to actually target the place in the prostate where there is the greatest suspicion. So there's a lot going on about biopsies. There are some times when the cancer is placed so toward the front or toward the middle that the transrectal approach has difficulty reaching it. And in that instance, we have what's called a transperineal biopsy, which is basically what the radiotherapists do when they put seeds in there. Transperineal biopsy does not go through the rectum. It goes through the area between the rectum and the base of the penis. It has access to areas that are more difficult to reach with the transrectal biopsy. So there's a lot about biopsies that are emerging, and that's a little bit what I'd say in response to a question about prostate biopsies.
I think a follow-up question to the needle insertion, when the needle pulls out a sample, and that sample later is determined to have cancer, so in the retraction of the needle, what's the chance of those cancer cells spreading?
You know, when a cancerous prostate is punctured, and as I say, it's usually 12, 20, or sometimes, there is always some cancer cells that are put into the bloodstream. But the occurrence of prostate cancer as a result of biopsies is not even registered. It isn't an issue. Now, the pulling out the core is not a way to spread cancer.
I have a question which contains this question, but in fact it goes into the bigger area of decision-making regarding any kind of intervention in urology in this case. My situation is that I have had a high prostate, a high PSA, but again, I factored in the fact that many factors into it. But the point is that I have resisted having a biopsy because I'm concerned about how the decision-making is made, not as much by the patient as it is by the medical practitioners themselves in conjunction with the patient. And here's where I'm coming to. As a kind of an example, let's assume, I guess where I'm getting to is that every time there's intervention or any time that something is done, it's kind of like the urological profession goes into firefighting mode to solve a problem. And it's usually a fairly radical intervention. Now, here's where I'm coming from. My visualization, and I've had to use this all through my career, where I visualize things, if you call it remote viewing or whatever you want to call it, but my visualization of a prostate cancer is that it occurs in the body. The body itself has got a tremendous autoimmune system, which we don't necessarily take into account when we go in firefighting mode because we immediately confront it. And its method, my visualization is that it will package up. Now, I'm not saying in every case here, but I'm saying that in a lot of cases, the cancer will actually be packaged up into nodules, kind of like mothballs, and they will actually be rendered non-metastatic because they will be mothballed away. Now, if I go in there with needles, I have to go through that to detect cancer. I have to actually go through that package, that nodule, in which case I immediately dissipate all those cells, and they're now floating free inside, close to the bloodstream, and they're obviously going to have a risk of metastasis. Now, this is why in other words, I have to get convincing evidence to have a biopsy for at least that reason, and also for the fact that it's, you're obviously going through an unclean area, and that increases risk of contamination. Now, it may not be a full-blown detectable infection, but who knows what it is? We may not have the tooling and the capability to discover it yet. So I'm very concerned about the invasiveness, and I'm not a person that's against, like I explained to these people, I chose green light surgery, green light laser surgery for BPH, and I was prepared to do that. So I'm not a technophobe or anything like that, but I have really, really great reservations about, in other words, I'd say, why not give the autoimmune system a decent chance? For example, if we were to tie up, let's say that you were going to tether a boat and you wanted it to be tethered on a river. And you take into account the fact that the river would have tidal flows, so the boat will go up and down plus or minus 6 feet, just for the hell of it. So you'll put a rope of that size on. But what you don't take into account is the fact that once in 100 years there can be a tsunami coming. And that's what caught the people in Fukushima, for example. And when that tsunami comes, the tsunami will also pass, but the autoimmune system can't deal with it instantly because of the time frame. The time frame of the tidal flows is very different from the time frame of the tsunami. And because of that, the decisions being made are too much in the firefighting mode, and they're actually operating as if it were a tsunami, and they're going for the full tsunami thing, whereas maybe you're going through the nice gentle motion of tidal, which the autoimmune system will take care of. Now that's a long question, but that's where I stand in my decision making. And
okay. Well, that's very well said. I guess the major question that underlies your situation is, do you have prostate cancer or do you not? And if you don't, then there's no concern. If you do, then you might want to find out whether you have it. Because early intervention is helpful in terms of outcome. So in order to really address your question, if I were your urologist or your doctor, we would talk about what about your situation leads to a suspicion that you have prostate cancer. Well, obviously the first clue about the presence of prostate cancer is an elevated PSA. And I don't know whether you wish to reveal your PSA, but if we were having a consultation, that would be the first thing to be concerned about. The second thing would be, how quickly has your PSA risen to the height that it has? I have a friend who has a very large prostate, and for years his PSA has been 14. I actually don't know how it got there because that began quite some time ago, but over the last couple of years at least, it's remained in the range of 13 or 14. Well, I think with the stability of that PSA, even at that high level, you begin to have a feeling that, well, that's the PSA comes from a very large prostate. Now, if a person doesn't have a large prostate, and the PSA begins to climb 3.5, 5, as you know, there are age limits which indicate a range for the proper range of PSA for men. And as we get older, PSAs of 4 and 5 are acceptable. But when you start getting above 5 or so, unless you can prove that you've been there for 4 or 5 years, if you've come up to 5 and now you're going to 6, that suggests that there is prostate cancer there. And you're talking a little bit about the immune system, which is a very, very powerful defense that we have. But if the PSA is rising And if the prostate has cancer, and if the cancer is increasing, that's evidence that in your particular situation at that time, the immune system is not able to control the process of cancer. And so some type of intervention may be required. So although we can be very happy about having a strong immune system, and in fact, after prostate cancer is treated, we are reliant upon our immune system to keep it low and under control. But if the PSA is rising, it's pretty much testimony that the immune system is not up to the job that you want it to do. So I'm not going to go into your situation, although I'd be happy to talk about it if you want to talk about your PSA, but that's what I'd have to say.
Well, I can tell you, my PSA, okay, it always was very low. When again, there's an age factor there, we don't naturally get a rise with age, but when I had prostatitis, and it went up into the 20s. And then it dropped down, and it dropped down into the 60s. Now, I view that as the tsunami, and in a way that would have driven heavy firefighting on the part of the... So I had to actually resist heavily biopsies at that point, because I'm finding that prostatitis is way underdiagnosed. Way underdiagnosed, is from the reading that I do. In any case, I also looked at the numbers for all-cause mortality versus prostate cancer-induced mortality. And once you get past a certain age, once you're into your, up into your 70s, the numbers are extremely hard to justify to actually, that I found from my research, to justify heroic intervention unless it's your mind is at stake to try and pacify your mind, or unless some other things. But this is where I come from, and it's a big decision-making effort, and I don't get a lot of capability to discuss that when I go to a urologist, because we're all time-clocking everything, you know what I mean?
You know, if you take all comers in the age of 70, the PSAs are generally in the range of 3.5 to 5.5. So your PSA of 20 is a real outlier. I don't know whether you have any lumps on the prostate, but that would be a concern.
DRE is normal. DRE is non-remarkable.
Good. Okay. Look, I guess my feeling is at PSA of 20, unless it's been 20 for
16 actually, 16.
5 or 6 years, I guess I'd be concerned. And
but coming off of a heavy prostatitis and a bladder and a UTI, which I never had in my life, by the way, both of them combined and in conjunction with each other, you can't expect instantaneous results in a drop. There's going to be a slow velocity down and ramping down. So I would expect that it would take at least 4 or 5 years to actually ramp back down to being within a range where I would consider under 5 or something like that. Again, bearing in mind that we have to question that the PSA is an indirect measurement of a protein that's generated. It does not indicate you have cancer. So I'm taking all that into account.
if I were your physician in the office talking about this, I would very much like to have seen your PSA numbers for, say, the last 5 years to see what the trend has been. And that would be an important piece of information. If it's been kind of steady at 20, which would be high, I guess I'd be less concerned.
Yeah, the trend was a spike.
If it's rising bit by bit every year, I would be concerned.
The trend was a spike because it went up into the 20s, into the high 20s for what I considered was prostatitis. Then it started coming back down. And then it's settling out now with low velocity at around 16. And the point is this, that as long as it's got low velocity, I ain't going anywhere.
Well, I don't think I can address that any further, but have a strong opinion about the strength of the immune system, which you're counting.
In this room are cancer survivors to increase and enhance our immune systems.
That question came through a little bit garbled to me. Could you repeat it?
Most of us in this room are cancer survivors, and what I would like to do is, what are the 5 things or the 7 things that we can do to enhance our immune systems?
Well, the things that have shown usefulness in either preventing prostate cancer or slowing it down have been exercise, diet, aspirin. Those are the major things which have an effect on the development of prostate cancer. One is always concerned about adequate, fairly vigorous exercise and a relatively Mediterranean-type diet. And I think basically a baby aspirin every day has been shown to have some benefit, particularly after prostate cancer has been occurred. It's helpful to slow the progress down.
Thank you. Thank you.
I read recently.
How about vitamins? How about vitamins? A lot of the group here are big into various vitamins and supplements. So,
You know, there's been a lot written about supplements, and I think the fellow who writes most eloquently about this is a fellow named Boyack. He's from Michigan, and he writes books about diet, and he's very much downplays supplements, but he urges people to get their vitamins and minerals from their food. And that seems like a very reasonable thing.
thank you. Thank you very much.
I read recently iodine has been identified.
I don't know that iodine has an effect on prostate cancer in any of its phases.
Dr. Ed Weber, Steve from Portland. First of all, thank you. I've heard of your name. I wish it was Dr. Weber in Portland was part of this. The Prostate Cancer Research Institute has an annual event at Hilton in LA. It's 3 days, and they have an all-day performance by researchers and MDs that they talk off the cuff. They had this year a British doctor who's using HIFU, and then they talked on the issue of cryology and so on. And let me back up. They also had Ken Griffey Sr., who's had 5 uncles and 1 nephew die of this illness, traveling around because they are supporting him. What I take away as a novice and a first-time attendee is that there's a lot more going on outside our own little world that we may or may not become aware of. Is Britain or any other country doing anything in their treating of prostate cancer that we haven't got a stamp of approval here in this country? And if that's happening, how do we make ourselves more aware when we deal with our advisor team?
You know, that's a very, very good question. And every day I review prostate cancer research and literature, and there's a huge quantity of it. I'm very impressed that in many instances our country is a little bit behind, because I read of things going on in Germany and Spain and Japan, and I say to myself, I wish we had those things here. I try to cover the newest and most promising things in my commentary, and the one that I have about to publish, and you're all welcome to get it. I think Jack could arrange for that, or you could email me and I'll put you on the list. One of the most important imaging tests, I'm talking about imaging the body, imaging the prostate, that's about to occur around the world. It's called the prostate-specific membrane antigen, PSMA antigen imaging. It's a total body scan, and it has the capacity to identify locations of prostate cells anywhere in the body. It is being used all over the country. It is now coming to this country, and it's available at University of California, San Francisco, UCLA, at Stanford, Wisconsin, Iowa, Johns Hopkins, the NIH, and we will soon be able to have what's called the PSMA PET-CT. It will totally revolutionize how we can manage prostate cancer. But the reason, additionally, to bring it up is in Heidelberg, Germany, for the last 6 years, they have been linking the PSMA tracer, that is the radioactive tracer that goes right to the prostate cell, and along with it is carried a radioisotope that kills the cancer cells. And I write about this in my most recent commentary. It's terribly exciting because people who have had extensive disease have had remarkable responses with the combination of a tracer that goes right to the prostate cell, because this PSMA is on the surface of 90% of prostate cells, and it carries the treatment, which is a radioisotope, and it offers a radioactive treatment to that cell. When that becomes available, we are going to be in an entirely different ballgame. And that's an example, as an answer to your question, of something that has been developing elsewhere that we're a little bit late in coming to, but we will come to it. I'm aware of things that are done elsewhere that we don't know. And, the other scans that are very, very helpful are ones that are carried out at Mayo Clinic and at Scottsdale and Arizona Nuclear Imaging. They're difficult to get to, but there is a scan that has just been approved by the FDA that is a total body scan. It's not a bone scan, it's not a multi-parametric MRI, it's a total body scan, and it addresses the question of where is the prostate cell nowadays? Where has it gone? Where has it spread to? That particular scan is called, the trade name is AXUMIN, Axhuman. And at Swedish, we're going to have that scan in July, and it's going to be available in many nuclear medicine departments. The availability of a scan such as the Axhuman, AXUMIN, will make a big difference in how we manage prostate cancer. So if you ask me what general area was moving ahead that's going to help managing prostate cancer, it is these new developments in the field of imaging.
I got to come back. I got to come back, Doctor. I ask you this: when you got Bayer and Griffey go around the country and promote whatever Bayer is promoting, then how do we counter that? How do we collectively, as a group, do we go to the streets with our flags and go to Washington, D.C., 600,000 strong? What do we do to counter the fact that there is this research that shows promise, but we're not hearing about it here?
Well, there seems to be a tendency for the FDA to rather delay advances. It took a long time for the FDA to approve of the Axhuman scan. It was available in many areas. I don't know how to answer your question, but you attended the Prostate Cancer Research Institute conference, which I think is great, and you might have actually heard the man who does the work at Arizona. His name is Almeida. Very nice guy, does a great job, and he was on. Mark Schultz was interviewing him. A lot of new thoughts were brought up, and Mark Schultz talked about these things. I suppose, in that's a very commendable thing that you did to go to the Prostate Cancer Research Institute conference.
Thanks.
Dr. Weber, synthetic testosterone. It's been on my mind for the past 10 years. The question is it adding fuel to the fire if you have an indolent PC? Or low-grade cancer?
You do get radiation if you have a CAT scan. It's computerized axial tomography. Pretty standard. It's been around for 30 years at least. Still as a workhorse. It does give a small amount of radiation. However, when one is confronted with an important disease, there is always the trade-off between, what's the downside, what's the upside. And the reason why the CAT scan has been used so much is it tells us some things that you can't learn without doing them. So I think you just have to accept the fact that there's some radiation that you're going to have to accept in order to get the information that you cannot otherwise get. But the CAT scan is going to be less and less important. For example, with an MRI, there is no radiation. So nowadays, the most advanced urologists, if they are trying to decide whom to biopsy and what part of the prostate to biopsy, they will do a multi-parametric MRI. This is an MRI focusing on the prostate gland. It can tell you where the area of abnormality is, how big it is, and even something about its Gleason score. The current urologists will get a multi-parametric MRI, and then they will use that to guide their biopsy to the place of greatest interest. And that has been reported for years as being much more informative than the standard 12 biopsies randomly placed throughout the prostate. That's available. I'm sure that there is one or two or maybe three places in Tacoma that offer a multi-parametric MRI. So if you're looking at the prostate, there's no reason to do a CAT scan with a little bit of radiation. You can learn so much more with this so-called multi-parametric MRI. So, yes, we're concerned about radiation. The CAT scan is going to be less and less important as time goes on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll redirect the question. Synthetic testosterone, basically Viagra, testosterone. So is that adding fuel to the fire per se? You have to have an indolent PC and don't know it because you haven't gotten any scans or biopsies. The synthetic testosterone, is it going to add fuel to the fire if you have a low-grade cancer, a low-grade prostate cancer? It's been on my mind. I have never taken it. I might have had a reason to take it, but I did not. So speaking for a percentage of us males, is it a risk factor?
No, it's not. It's not a risk factor for this reason. Most men, if they're taking testosterone supplements, let's say you're putting a gel on a couple days a week, you're doing it because your serum testosterone is low. The average man's testosterone, let's say a man has 50s or 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s, is going to be somewhere between 400 and 800. That's kind of the standard range. There's a lot of variation, as you might expect. But there is a condition that can occur at any age, but it actually increases as one gets older. The testosterone level decreases. And when it gets down to something like 225 or 200, down from what you presume had been between 400 and 800 start, you're officially called hypogonadal, which means that your testicles aren't making enough testosterone. There's no harm in a man to take supplemental testosterone to bring his testosterone up to normal. I mean, it seems obvious. If a person has a normal testosterone, we don't bring it down. And those people are the ones who live their lives, and some people get prostate cancer and some don't. So if you're taking testosterone supplements for a depressed and low testosterone to bring it up to the normal range, that has no effect on prostate cancer.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm doing intermittent ADT, and I have been told that I cannot get immunotherapy unless my ADT doesn't work and the cancer spreads and doesn't respond to anything else. My question is, if I were to go to that point, does immunotherapy do anything more to get rid of the cancer than ADT, which is just a holding action?
Yeah, good question. In other words, you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer. You must have had a treatment, surgery or radiation, and now you are taking androgen deprivation therapy. In other words, you're having your testosterone lowered. That's ADT, stands for androgen deprivation therapy, and it's the standard way to approach PSAs that are rising, and it's also used after surgery, after radiation, in men whom you feel are at high risk for having the disease sort of reemerge, and that's called adjuvant. In other words, you're taking it in a preventive way. If you actually are having a rising PSA, let's say after surgery, let's say you've had your prostate out, and as one knows, about 6 weeks or 8 weeks after your prostate is out, the surgeons will generally do a PSA. That will be an indication of how completely the operation addressed the prostate cancer. And let's say it was really low. Let's say it was less than 0.1, or maybe less than 0.01. So now we have, if that person had extremely high risk for spread prostate cancer, he might be given ADT. But take the more common situation. Let's say time passes, and now we have 2 years, maybe 3 years after surgery, and the PSA has started to rise. If it exceeds a certain value, which is 0.2, it is felt that it is now back in sufficient quantities that something needs to be done about it. And many times that means that you're going to take androgen deprivation therapy. So that's the mainstay of the treatment of the elevated PSA. There's lots to say about when to do it and how long to do it, but that's sort of the basic thing. Now the question about immunotherapy has a bearing on this answer, because the only immunotherapy treatment that we now have is an agent called Provenge, which has been moderately successful. It was developed in order to address men who had metastases and also were castrate resistant. In other words, it was considered a late agent. In that situation, when the immunotherapy called the Provenge was used, and it's given 3 injections once a month, fairly fancy way to handle it. I don't know if anybody's had that here, but it requires taking blood, sending it over to a lab, having them process it, sending it back, getting it back to you. That agent actually seemed to help. and it increased the survival in these men who had metastatic late-stage prostate cancer. The median was 4.1 months. Now, a number like that is always something you have to take with a little bit of understanding, because most things that are reporting on prostate cancer treatment talk about a median response, which of course means some people did better and some people did worse. So the median response for Provenge was 4.1 months. Actually, there were some people whose cancer was held in check for 2 and 3 years, and others whom it didn't work. The median was 4.1. That treatment has been restricted to persons who have metastatic disease, which is kind of too bad, because the best time to give immunotherapy is when the burden of the disease is as small as possible. So it ought to be moved way up front, and they're working on that. But right now, it's approved for persons with metastatic disease. You can have a smidgen of metastatic disease and still qualify. It would be better to have just a little bit than a lot. One of the things I wanted to mention tonight was that there is another immunotherapy that is working its way toward FDA approval, and the name of that is called Prostvac, Prostvac, Prostvac. It's a somewhat complicated program of treatment, but it's given as an immunization, like you get a flu shot, and it requires 6 treatments in series. In the same group of men, the same type of men in which Provenge had the extension of 4.1 months of survival, Prostvac did 8.6. So it looks like it's going to be a better immunotherapy. And there are some actual trials right now in persons who have metastatic prostate cancer with Prostvac with or without Xtandi, which is the trade name for enzalutamide. So in the area of immunotherapy, the thing to watch is the approval by the FDA of Prostvac, because it's going to be a better immunotherapy than Provenge.
I have a question. I thank you so much for you being so generous to give us your time here and a great answer to questions. My question is, what were the drivers that caused the U.S. task force study to essentially terminate screening for prostate using PSA?
That is a hot topic. No question about it. I have written about that with a great deal of heat. And it is an absolutely ridiculous recommendation. What we're seeing now, we knew it was going to happen, but what we're seeing is that since 2012, when the preventive services said, do not do screening, many primary care doctors didn't screen. Now, the urologists did screen, but the primary care doctors didn't. So all over the country, there was less screening, and we knew what was going to happen. In the near future, now we're 2016, 2017, we are seeing more men being diagnosed at a greater advanced stage of prostate cancer. I mean, you knew it was going to happen. The men who might have been found early were not found, and they presented with metastatic disease or advanced cancer, and it is a bad thing entirely. So what should a primary care doctor do? It is so very simple. What he needs to do at any age, if you have a family history, you probably ought to have your son start at age 40. age 45 would be a good time to start for every man. Every man needs one PSA in order to see what it is. And on the basis of that, you can decide whether that man needs another PSA in 5 years or 10 years, or maybe 2 years or 1 year. But on the basis of one PSA, you can evaluate what further testing would be useful to it. It seems like such a no-brainer, but it's going to take a while for that to get around. People who know about screening are saying, get a single PSA and then make a decision as to where you go from there in testing. I could go on for a long time.
If one has been treated for cancer, radiation, ADT, for a year and a half, and off of it a year and a half, PSA is still negligible, but testosterone never came back. It's like 90. So is synthetic testosterone out of the question here, or is that something that might help one get a little energy back?
Yeah, that's a good question. How old are you?
I'm 79.
Okay, and you had radiation, and then you had a period of probably Lupron.
Well, I had 6 months of Dicaralis, and then it was a study, and then the rest was Lupron. Yeah, a year of Lupron, and I'm still getting hot flashes but no testosterone. Well, it's very low. Yeah.
But you're touching on a very important point. Now, at age 75, 79, I doubt that you know what your testosterone was to start with.
I was 4 before treatment. It was 7. No, it was 4, and it went up to 7 in 2 years.
It was in the 400s?
Oh, you're talking about the testosterone? It was 4. No, it was 7. It was 4 when I started.
Testosterone?
Are you talking about testosterone or?
Testosterone.
He said 400, 800 normal.
Oh, okay.
No, we're talking about, I think you and I are talking about testosterone. And so my question was, at age 79, it'd be interesting to know what your pre-treatment testosterone was. It might have been low.
It was 4.
I think that's the PSA.
Well, excuse me. They use it, it would have been 400.
And the ladies is crazy.
They use
I have
nanograms or whatever.
That's what we said, 250.
Would have been 400.
Yeah. And that would be, a nice, it'd be a good testosterone for a 79-year-old man.
Well, that would have been about 75.
Okay. We'll bump it up a little bit. So, after you take Lupron, your PSA, your testosterone drops in the course of a month down to probably 20. If it goes below 50, that's good. That's old-fashioned. It's better to go to 20 or maybe 30, and they're called nanograms per DL. So, as long as you're taking the Lupron for a year, your testicles are being suppressed, your pituitary is being suppressed, and there will be very little testosterone made. Now, after the last shot of Lupron, which usually is a 3-month shot, of course, your testosterone is still low because it's a 3-month shot. Well, but even after the 3 months, it is very unlikely that your testosterone would return to anything near normal. It may hardly budge for a year. It may never come up again. So in a sense, you are having a decrease of testosterone in the aftermath of Lupron, and possibly because of being 75, your body hasn't recovered so that the testosterone is not being made as much. That's a very common situation, and most persons think, I had my last shot my testosterone is probably okay. If you go on it for a year, the testosterone will take a year or two to start climbing up again. So,
Okay, I've been off of it a year and a half.
do you know whether it's come up?
Yeah, so, and it's came up a little bit, but now it dropped back down to about 90. And so I was wondering, the question was, is synthetic testosterone an option here, or is that something to stay away from because of cancer?
That's a really important and very controversial question. And there is a fella who's from Harvard, his name is Morgentaler, and he writes extensively about supplemental testosterone in men who have been treated for prostate cancer who are having a persistently low testosterone. Because having a low testosterone has consequences. Your bones are not as fortified, your energies are not as good, your muscles are not as weak, you're not as strong. So there are consequences of having a low testosterone. So we're talking quality of life here. So in a person whose testosterone is 90, should that man have testosterone supplements to bring his testosterone up to 300? It sounds pretty simple, but it actually is a little bit clouded, because studies have shown that men who have low testosterones, who have replacement and come up to a higher level, some of them do better, and some of them don't do better. So it's a little bit hard to tell. But Morgentaler has almost made it a business of writing about giving men who have had successful treatment of their prostate cancer testosterone replacements. And he writes that there is no problem doing that. And there's a very interesting rationale behind that I won't go into, but you always have in the back of your mind, am I going to stimulate some cells that are sitting there just waiting for some more testosterone to come their way? Or am I going to try to have an increase in quality of life? And it's a big question. But for the most part, if you had freedom from recurrence for 4 or 5 years, I think Morgentaler would say, take some replacement if that improves your quality of life. If you take it, it doesn't make any difference, I wouldn't take it anymore. I mean, there's a little risk there. But if it made you really better, I'd say that's worth doing. And Morgentaler would strongly say yes.
I have a question. I'm 78 years old, and no matter what I do, I cannot get the testosterone to come up. What do you think is happening there? My strength is good. The only reason I did this is for sex drive. I exercise well. My lifestyle is great, but no matter, I've over 2 or 3 years, constant testosterone supplement, and it will not come up.
You're saying your sex drive doesn't come up?
No, that's secondary.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I took it originally for that, but what I'm concerned with now is the reason why my testosterone numbers are not coming up after 2 years.
And they did not, you were taking supplements and still the testosterone didn't come up?
Correct. After surgery for prostate, my testosterone was right at 90 to 100.
No, I guess it's a matter of dose. Because if you take more, it'll come up. You're actually giving your body testosterone.
But it doesn't come up, though.
It does not come up.
It does not come up. With the supplements and the gels and everything else. What would cause that is my question.
The question is, what would cause your testosterone to not respond to the supplement?
To supplements, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think it has to be a matter of dose or the method of application. How do you take the testosterone?
Well, it's sprayed on the, every morning I put it on my shoulder.
Uh-huh. With the patches or the gel?
The gel.
Well, I would say the person who is prescribing it for you might want to say, well, I'm going to prescribe a bit more.
Is there any danger in getting, there's something going on there where I'm not a,
Could it be that his body
exercise, active physically, my life, even though I'm 78 years old. I golf, I run, I lift weights, I exercise, but it just sits there and will not move.
Could it be that his body is regulating it to be at that point? Like when cholesterol was being treated and they found that the body wants to have certain levels.
Yeah. All right. I like the fact you're doing vigorous weight exercises because those are very important to preserve the bone density. Congratulations for that. I guess I feel it's a matter of dose which should be discussed with the fellow who's prescribing it.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you. I need some information along that line for sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, Doctor, I have a question. What advice would you give to a man who has to start making decisions about what to do about prostate cancer? Considering that there's such an overwhelming amount of information out there, and considering that there's so much new technology and new studies, and considering that sometimes it seems that the doctors that they're seeing don't agree with each other. What advice would you give to somebody who has to start making decisions?
And we're talking about the decision as to whether to have a biopsy or a decision.
I think all along the course, the whole course. So if you have a patient who's come in and probably has to start making decisions about what to do, how do you help them make those decisions, and how do you ease their mind that they've made the decision that's best for them?
Well, and you're right, there's a huge There's a huge amount of information out there about prostate cancer. Some of it good, some of it bad. I guess I'm going to put a plug in for a website that I participate in. I don't know, most of you probably never knew a really remarkable fellow who did braking therapy named Peter Grimm. But Peter Grimm, and then later I and others, developed a website. And on that website, there's a lot of basic information about prostate cancer, what kind of tests to have. For this man who needs to get information from a credible source, I would suggest he goes to PCTRF. That's Prostate Cancer Treatment Research Foundation.com. And on that site, there's a lot of basic information about prostate cancer testing. I'm on a couple videos there about what to do for diagnosing prostate cancer. I can say that that's a credible site that he might seek out for basic information. Also, all my commentaries are archived.
Could you repeat that website, please?
It's P as in Peter, prostate, C as in cancer, treatment, prostate cancer treatment, PCT, research, and an R, foundations and F.com. Okay. Prostate Cancer Treatment Research Foundation.
Okay, so PCTRF.
PCTRF.
Thank you.
there he is. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Yep.
Is Jack here?
Yes, sir. I want to thank you very much for being our outstanding research guy over the years. I know that these 19 years, as I'm a 19-year survivor, and I know you were active before then in the Big Swanson group and other groups, and I treasure your expertise, your willingness to spend time with us. You are such a wonderful resource for us. So thank you so much for that. I want to ask you one question about
one other thing I do also, I've got a inversion machine.
I know you know the name Jerry Murphy.
Every morning, yeah.
Jerry Murphy, I was able to get in contact with early on in my journey, and Jerry Murphy took samples from me regarding his research on PSMA.
I used to stay on at 10
I was
minutes.
just wondering if the current PSMA is
They say
follow
3 to
on
5.
refinement of what he was doing.
He doesn't
You
go
worked so
complete.
hard to
He
push
goes to
that
9.
forward.
Take it. I used to go up all the way. But
Jack, could you come so I can
Little
take
better
a
than
look and
half.
see what you look like?
You bet. I'm on my way. Did you get the question okay, Dr. Weber?
Yeah.
There he is, that blonde locks and all. Can you see me?
Where is he?
Oh, get in front. There he is. Let's see. Hey, oh, okay. Look at there, hey, we got some hair.
Jack, if anybody in the support group there would like to be put on the list to receive my commentary, either they or you could send me their email and I'll arrange for them to get it.
Wonderful. Now, I do want to make a comment that Peter Grimm was here about 3 months before he died, telling us about his organization, of course, mentioned you, and the value of knowing and being able to go to a source like that. And I know it will be a benefit to many of us, and will continue to be. Thank you so much for your work and helping us realize that there's a place to go to find out the answers.
At least do what you've been doing.
And I would also say, I'd be very willing to have an email from anybody in the group asking a question, I'll respond to it. And if you need me to come back again at any time, it's really easy. I just sit here in my...
The other thing I've said in
yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah.
I don't do enough of that.
Regarding PSMA research, and I was just wondering if this current research is a continuation of his work.
The PSMA?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it Ragney? No, who was the man in Seattle?
We're in cohorts, but it was not here. It was the local government. I just mentioned his name a moment ago.
Twice a week I go back.
Anyway, I was introduced to him as a result of going to a urologist in California, and he said, why don't you get in contact with him? And I did, and it was an advantageous thing for me to do. He died of a heart attack while he was in Israel doing a lecture.
I got a house with 3 acres of swimming pool I gotta maintain now.
Extensive samples of my PSMA.
Keep telling the dump that's my exercise. But I need to walk the job.
In addition to or other than this PSA,
You're gonna start, they put the markers in 1st of February.
looking at our prostate cancer.
We'll be praying for our brother.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I'm Jerry Murphy, okay, that's right. Well, I can say that what he began and other persons with PSMA has taken, what would that be, 15 years at least, but it is really going to make a huge difference. So good for him for getting started on it.
Okay. Yeah, just,
And once
just
again, thank
stick
you so much
around.
for being a part of this lecture this evening, and it's just,
I give you.
you've been so good to us
I give you
for
my,
all the years.
my name
Somebody
here.
like you
I give you my
as
name,
part of our
my name here on,
team
give me a sheet of my scratch pad.
It's been a lot of fun.
There's my name right downtown.
Okay.